Yo, what's up, people? Back again. My second video, my first live video. So this is kind of like I was sort of thinking today after I had a long day at work. And I've been talking all day like non-stop. So I don't know to make a video right now. Actually, no, I do know why I decided to make a video right now. It's to matches my T-shirt, old school Arsenal colours, Royal Arsenal colours. It's also kind of like Malbec colours. Yeah, you can't even tell. I have a little bit of a dark environment here, but anywho, I was thinking about last night's game and also thinking about how kind of like what happened with Unai Emery and Arsenal was to some degree, I mean, at least like to some degree, unjust. Now, if you were to say to me in a crazy like hypothetical situation that you could only pick Mikel Arteta or Unai Emery to return to coach or sort of manage Arsenal for the not the rest of the season, but for like say next season, who would you rather have in charge of Arsenal, Mikel Arteta or Unai Emery? Now, bear in mind that at the end of Unai Emery's reign, he was like a much maligned manager, and it kind of got me thinking that, was this really justified? Now we know that Emery is not in the elite bracket, like he's not sort of like he's not like a Pep or a Klopp or even Conte, of course, or Zidane. He's not in that kind of like elite sphere, but he's up there. R.I.P. Claude. Claude made one of the best kind of comparisons I can actually really think of when he called in the Spanish Brendan Rodgers. He was bantering a little bit at the time, but with the wisdom of the passage of time, we can see that actually that comparison, like, can you actually make a better comparison than that? Like the Spanish Brendan Rodgers, and that's not like from my perspective, that's not to take the piss out of Brendan Rodgers or Unai Emery. It's like that kind of level, that kind of like just underneath people like Pep and Klopp, etc. That's like a spot on comparison, man. I mean, I can't lie. So my general thought was like, did we actually mistreat this guy? Did we sack him too early? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to fanboy Emery here. He made some really fucking shit decisions. Number one, numero uno, was the Palace game. The Palace game where he completely underestimated what Palace were capable of. We got done. We all know what happened. Some of the selection choices were pretty frigging terrible. So we know how that went. But he was learning his trade at the time. He was still learning his trade in the Premier League. And you kind of got to allow him these mistakes. But from that, there was kind of like this kind of snowball effect where people were taking the piss out of like the way he spoke, the good evening stuff, which is obviously so famous, but also like there was issues with the lack of communication with the team in training, apparently, and this sort of stuff. And our players, and I don't want to lump all of our players into this because I think the likes of Saka, ironically, the likes of Saka, Smith Rowe, the players that you would probably expect maybe to be less mature, were the ones that have actually subsequently come out and bigged him up and said that he was like a quality manager, that he gave them like a proper, proper coach, like proper knowledge about the game, and he really kind of instilled that in them. It actually seems to be that the more senior players in our squad were the ones that turned against him and acted in an immature way, and really kind of like, added to that snowball effect of getting him out of the club. I mean, and that is not the only reason why he left. He didn't leave just because like the players didn't turn up for him, sort of thing, or down tools a little bit. It is a big reason, but some of his tactical nous was not necessarily that well honed. Hence, he's not in that elite kind of bracket sort of thing. We saw this actually against Villarreal when Francois Cote, well, can't say his name. I'll try to slow down because I'm from the north. So like when it comes to like when there's a lot of consonants involved in a word or someone's name, people from the north have a little bit of trouble. Francois Coquelin, I think I got that right. When he came on, it was kind of like, man, I can see what's going to happen now. This is like a typical Emery thing. He's going to bring somebody on who's a bit more defensive minded, as allegedly Coquelin was or is, And he's going to try to play for the win. He got the 2 goals in the first half, which was probably more than he expected to get. I didn't expect Arsenal to play that well in the first half because, well, not the first half, in the first leg, because it's the first leg. Arsenal, this set of players need a do or die situation. As I mentioned in my previous video, if anyone who's watching hasn't seen that, go watch my previous video. I do a little breakdown of this. But these Arsenal players seem to need the game to be kind of like the biggest game of the season. Everything rides on this game for them to perform, which is mad because, like, why do you need that? You're putting on the shirt of Arsenal. You're wearing the badge of Arsenal. This is like the top three, one of the top 3 clubs. Obviously not like by league standings, but by general stature, and the footballing hierarchy, and of course the history. But we can't keep living on history, of course. But we've got a lot of credit in the bank, and we've got a lot of stature within the English game and the global game, and to be classed as a top 3 team, because it's going to take Chelsea and Man City, even though they've been obviously very successful over the past kind of like 15 years or so, let's say 10 to 15 years. It's going to take a lot for them to actually sort of come up to the level of Arsenal in terms of stature globally, or even just sort of nationally in our country. So with what happened to Emery, I kind of feel that he became sort of helpless in a way, and when it gets to that point, there's not really much going back from there. It's disappointing because it's led to this. It's led us now, this kind of like immature behavior from quite a lot of our squad has led us to the situation that we're in now. So none of them can really fucking complain, because look, if these guys had knocked down tools and had really kind of like started to play properly, had started to follow Emery's advice, which generally top 4 by point, actually, wasn't it? I still feel that, or know that Emery had them on a much more coherent path than what Arteta has. I mean, you just need to look at what happened last night. The idea that you're going to experiment with a false 9, with Odegaard up front in the game against in a semi-final of the Europa League against Unai Emery as well. A lot of people mentioned the fact that Pep Guardiola did a similar thing with Man City. I mean, it seems mad to think that that would be what Arteta did. It seems mad to think. I get where people are coming with that, but it seems mad to think that Arteta. That seems to imply that Arteta didn't have a plan up until PSG Man City on the Wednesday. That can't be true. Surely Arteta had this plan, before the PSG Man City game. There is no way on this earth that Arteta prepared for this game for like the past kind of like 10 days or whatnot. Then saw the PSG Man City game, was like, do you know what? I'm going to completely change everything at the last minute. We'll get the guys in early in the training ground. I think they were were they over in Spain at the time? I'm not sure if they were over in Spain at the time. But anyway, get the guys in and then completely change the tactics at the last minute. Arteta is pretty, he's pretty immature in terms of his coaching and managerial prowess. But Jesus Christ, I do not think that like he's going to change his entire tactical approach just because he watched PSG versus Man City and Man City come back and did what they did against PSG. I'm not convinced by that. I just think that Arteta has a massive ego, and this ego is fueled by his how can I put it? This ego is kind of fueled by this tendency to be, or this kind of habit to be like the company man. He is a company man for the Kroenkes, and I saw this with this first appeared to me with the Kroenke situation, with the Ozil situation. One sec. So basically, I used to watch. Let's rewind even more. I used to watch Arsene Wenger's, even the the bad end of the Wenger reign of terror. In the end, I used to watch the Arsene Wenger pre-match conferences and the post-match press conferences quite religiously, because even though he was picking teams that would almost like cause me to have like a freaking meltdown before the actual game, when you watch his pre-match and post-match stuff, he still had insight. He was still a wily character, even though he wasn't necessarily able to kind of like navigate his way through the games as they, the modern or the changing modern game that was kind of like he was starting to experience at the time. Even still, you could see watching him, like you could sit and watch him talk, and you would still gain nuggets of knowledge. Then he goes. Ljungberg comes in. Obviously, that's a temporary thing. And then Unai Emery comes in, and he can't speak the language, but then big ups to him for actually trying to speak his first press conference, where he knew basically as much English as I know Spanish, which, let's face it, isn't a lot. And I ain't even going to sort of demonstrate what my Spanish is like. I've been over to south of Spain, Sevilla. I love Sevilla. Not Sevilla the club, but like Seville the place is an amazing place. If you haven't been there, once all this shit is out of the way with COVID, just if you want to go somewhere like Spain, somewhere hot, go to Seville. Seville is amazing. It's kind of like what do they call it? A city that doesn't sleep. But when you think of that phrase, you think of like New York, you think of London, and you think of like big cities like this. But Seville doesn't really come into the conversation. But Seville is a great place. This isn't an advert for Seville, but like I want to big up Seville, and I've had some great times there. But basically, the press conferences that he used to do that Unai Emery used to do were still kind of, they still had insight in them. They still had interesting analysis of the game. And if you were somebody who was interested in the kind of like being a sort of student of the game and being interested in the tactical side of the game, it was good to watch Emery, even though he kind of like fumbled his way through like trying to speak English and this kind of stuff, and he needed his translator and all that. It was still interesting to watch. You fast forward and then you start to watch Arteta. Arteta comes in. He says, now we understand why he was like what he was like in the beginning, but he says the right things at the start. Everyone kind of gets buzzed up because we think, oh, right, yeah, sweet. This guy is like he's got Arsenal's back. He's saying the things that the fans wanted to hear. And I think, perhaps in the future, if we're in this situation, we need to be a little bit more cautious of somebody who just comes in and says what the fans want to hear, because perhaps there is a more contrived reason as to why he is saying, or why the person is saying what the fans want to hear. Perhaps it isn't because he's on our side necessarily. Perhaps it isn't because he wants Arsenal to be back to their I wouldn't say deserved dominant position, but well, I kind of would say that as an Arsenal fan, wouldn't I? But back to just back to challenging for the title, basically. Arteta led us to believe that that was what we were going to achieve, and I think that was part of the plan. That was part of what his employers wanted him to do. And now you reflect back on it, having seen what subsequently happened, it makes a lot of sense. But at the time, he came in, and my point is that I used to watch, just like Wenger and just like Emery, I used to watch every single press conference with interest, and just wanted to hear what what he was going to say about the opposition, how he was going to analyze players, and all this kind of stuff that any football fan, not even just an Arsenal fan, but any football fan wants to know and wants to hear. Because look, us guys, we're on the sidelines. We ain't privy to what happens down in the mire of things, down in the minutiae. I can't pronounce that word. Minutiae. Oh God, yeah, I can't pronounce minor. Well, fuck it. All the little things that are involved in the everyday running of a club. Minutiae. I can't. Like, Jesus Christ, that is quite annoying. But anyway, all the little things that are involved in the everyday running of a club that people like us who haven't been involved in a big football club are not privy to. It's interesting to listen to managers who are kind of like who are savvy and learned and can kind of give us a little bit of an insight into what really goes on behind the scenes, and so we can kind of try to understand better why what happens on the pitch happens and why they set the teams up the way they do and this kind of stuff. And when you watch all the press conferences, you can kind of get an overall kind of understanding of why things are done the way they are. So yeah, then came the Ozil situation with his China tweets and all this kind of stuff. So obviously I mean, I guess people would say, I say people, but like, media and people connected, media connected with Arsenal and this kind of stuff would say that there's no real kind of like there's no kind of like nefarious reason that Ozil was kind of pushed out at that point, that it wasn't really to do with what he had posted about China and this kind of stuff. Well, we will never know. But my point is that there was a press conference when all this was kind of kicking off, and that was a press conference for me that really changed the way I viewed Arteta, because when he spoke in that press conference, suddenly he went from being this guy who, from all the other presses that I'd seen, had Arsenal's interests at heart, had the future progression of the club really at heart and in mind. He went to being this kind of company man, and he was covering, and he was clearly covering. And I actually I commented on Haters TV's post of the interview, and I made this point. I said, blatantly, Arteta is kind of being a politician in the way that he's talking and addressing this kind of stuff about Ozil. And the guy who actually runs Haters TV actually commented. You can probably go back to the video and see my comment, Future Shock, and his reply. And he didn't really seem to understand. Well, he basically didn't understand what I was saying. And I'm not trying to deride him, because, like, big up to Haters, because Haters, does wicked videos. But at that particular put this comment out, and he didn't. What are you talking about? I don't really get what you mean by he's been politically savvy. And you could blatantly see what Arteta was saying about Ozil was done in a completely politically or attempted politically savvy way. It was so obvious. And in that moment, my opinion of him changed quite a lot, because the image of him, or the way that he was actually operating for the first time. And I was like, okay. And initially, I was like, okay, maybe this is just, he's been given this situation to deal with Ozil, which is like a difficult situation to deal with. You've got your 350k player who isn't even in the squad, and you're having to be trotted out in front of the cameras, and you've got to say something to make it all better. It's like when you have a difficulty with your goal, you've got to say something to make it all better, except there's cameras involved, and this ain't no sort of porn thing, but there's cameras involved, so it's even more difficult. You might need a fluffer. But having said that, subsequently, I was just turned off from watching Arteta's press conference videos, let's say, videos that were on YouTube, because he just, and we know why he didn't take it, because he just didn't have the opportunity to take it, because his job was probably on the line, or his job is always on the line if he doesn't toe the line, and he is towing away Peter Beardsley. So it was really disappointing to see that, because prior he had been coming out with all like proper overtures that you want to hear as an Arsenal fan who wants to get back to where we need to be. And really, like, I don't know, man. I have not watched many press conferences about Arteta, because I kind of can't stand them now. And it didn't surprise me, the stuff that he was saying about. This has really turned into me talking about Arteta than Unai Emery. So we're going to get back to Unai Emery, actually. I just wandered off onto a tangent, or tangential, or as one of my day job is in the NHS. I work in mental health in the NHS, and one of the doctors one time, she always, not one time, that's the point. She always used to say tangential instead of tangential, bless her. But yeah, I wandered off on a tangential pathway there, of no return. But yeah, we'll get back to Unai Emery in a second. But I just wanted to say about Arteta's presser when he talked about the night. I don't think it's naivety, because people were laughing at this, like other like sort of bigger channels, big Arsenal channels were laughing about the idea that he was saying that, well, the Kroenkes have come out after the Super League stuff. The Kroenkes have come out with a statement, and they've reaffirmed that they're sort of committed to the club. So I think the fans will be fine with that. Do you really? Does he really think that? Come on. Does Arteta really think that? So two things. If he really thinks that, then he is delusional, like beyond help. Seriously, that is a major delusional disorder that he has got. If he thinks that, given the context of the protest and the ongoing situation with the fans versus Kroenkes, that he thinks that the statement like that the Kroenkes made, which was forced, to say the least, if he thinks that that is something that's going to pacify the fans, that's madness. That's absolutely mad, man. So yeah, look, he's oh man, he's batting in the wrong direction with that one. So let's bring it back to Unai Emery and the title of this thing, which was the mistreatment of Unai Emery. Unai Emery is not like an elite manager, as I said. However, like the possibility of him knocking us out of the Europa League is very real, and we're supposed to have progressed since he left. We're supposed to have got somebody in who progressed us since he left. However, what's happened is the players kind of immaturely down tools, sacked him off, and then he got sacked, and then we've got Arteta, and now we're 10th or 11th or whatever it is. So did we mistreat Unai? Yeah, I think if the players hadn't have done that, and Unai had been able to stay on, and they had followed his instruction, and we had got the players in that he wanted to get, because he didn't want to get Pepe. By the way, Pepe is a baller. One of the things I did disagree with Unai Emery on was like the idea that he didn't want Pepe. Caveat to that is Pepe versus Saha is an interesting idea. Pepe versus Saha is a difficult one. I guess you have to go with Zaha because of the Premier League pedigree and experience, and you would think that if he came into an Arsenal team that had like proper quality in it, like proper oozing quality in it, not Bellerin behind him, not Hickey B behind him, then that he would be able to kind of like, he probably would be able to shine a bit more. But having said that, he's a right winger. Pepe is a left winger. This is another thing, bringing it back to Arteta, that gets me. Pepe on the left plays really well, has a blinding game. Then he gets moved to the right for the next game, or he gets moved right back onto the bench. That makes no sense to me at all. It's just another thing that Mikel does that baffles you. It is kind of mind-boggling. But yeah, when I like I said, I go to Seville quite a lot, and I actually watch Real Betis, which is my Spanish team. Betis is like a carnival. You go to, I don't know if any of you guys watching have ever been to a Real Betis game, but you go to the Estadio de Benito Villamarin, Estadio de Christ. Too much of this. I can't speak Spanish after Argentinian, South American, kind of Spanish-ish wine. But yeah, Estadio Benito Villamarin. Fuck me, that is not good. The Betis Stadium, which is the Estadio Benito Villamarin, 60,000, most of them season ticket holders as well. They got like 50 to 55,000 season ticket holders. That is pretty crazy. When you go to that stadium and the sort of surrounding area on match day, it is like a carnival. As one of the Sky Sports commentators said, I don't know his name, but he's a good commentator, and I forget his name now, Jesus. And he always commentates on his own, and he commentates on La Liga games, and he's always kind of like, the Betis fans, when there were fans, this is obviously going back into the good old days, the Betis fans, they don't really care whether the team wins. They're here for the party. Sometimes the team wins, sometimes they lose. And that's kind of how it works with Betis. And, if you go to the ground and you go to Seville on match day, on match weekend, it's an absolutely wicked adventure. It's a wicked, wicked party all the time. So big ups to them. So yeah, look, Emery, man, if we'd have kept him and we'd have treated him right, like we should treat each other right, I think we would be in a better place than we are now. I think he would have given him, if he had been able to kind of like keep the players on side and be able to kind of like, he would continue to improve his communication. He would continue to improve his knowledge of the English language and his ability to communicate tactics and all these kind of things. He would have got us into the top four. I'm absolutely convinced of it, especially in a season like this and the subsequent seasons after the subsequent 2 seasons after he left, when the level has dropped off. Let's face it. Hence, you've got the likes of West Ham getting into the top four, or potentially getting into the top four. I don't think they'll quite make it. Unfortunately, I would actually like them to get into the top four, and Leicester to get into, like, let's say, Leicester, West Ham four, so we don't have to do with Chelsea and Liverpool getting in there. But let's see what happens on that front. Oh, coming to half an hour. For half an hour. Anyone who's watching, slap me a like and do a subscription. This is my first live stream. I'm gonna put something in here because I don't know. Lovely stuff. But yeah, so yeah, look, a lot of what I was trying to say about the Sevilla thing was, when I speak to Spanish fans, they talk about such high regard, and they're really kind of critical of how we dealt with him in England, and they're really kind of like, why did you guys, number one, mock him the way you did, and number two, disrespect him the way he did? The thing is, like, I'm gonna take another swig of this. This is what's this thing called? Well, it's called Malbec. It's Alzar Malbec. Yeah, it's really good, man. If you like your red wine, you like your Malbecs. Really, really smooth. It's an Argentinian Malbec, so yeah. Bottoms up. Let's hope so. But it is a bank holiday after all. So yeah, I mean, I think that, look, from what I hear from, what's the lighting going on with this thing? That's not too bad. Yeah, I'm kind of like concerned that like the lighting in my room is kind of dark. But the thing is, I have only 2 options. I have this sort of half light, which is all right, but my alternative is like the main light, which is hugely bright and ridiculous. So there's no way I'm having that on. Also, it makes me look like I'm 50, which I am not. So yeah, what can I say? But yeah, the Spanish fans that I talked to, like I was seeing this Spanish girl recently who's a big Barcelona fan, and she was saying the same thing. She was saying, like, you guys, you English guys, and you Arsenal fans, you were really like harsh on him. Like, he's a really great manager, and they look, they feel that. They just feel that he was mistreated by us, and you can kind of see why they think that. He's in massive reverence in Spain. I don't think they think that he's quite like, Pep or Zidane standard or this kind of stuff, but they, man, they quite rightly hold him in big regard, because you don't win the 4 Europas, I think it's 4, without being a top class manager. I'm going to wrap it up soon because my internet, what happens with my laptop, even though it's not a bad laptop, is it starts to get tired, and then it starts to sort of get hot, and the webcam starts to slow down. This is actually not too bad, so I can kind of continue. So that's cool. It was starting to be dodgy, so okay, let's just carry it on. But yeah, so that's kind of what they think. I mean, for me, it's kind of funny because when he first came in, I think it was what what we were thinking about Emery when he first came in was kind of almost like it's a stepping stone for him to become an elite manager, to come to Arsenal. He already had this pedigree where he was kind of like not an elite manager, but he was almost there, and he needed this club to give him that step up. And Arsenal was supposed to do that, and Arsenal was supposed to be that thing that would take him to the next level. But he was unable to do that for the reasons that we discussed earlier. So that's that's basically almost like what people are seeing with Arteta. Yet Arteta is at such a lower level, and it's kind of frightening to think that people could kind of even almost like compare the two. Unai Emery made, like I said right at the start of the beginning of the video, Unai Emery made his classic mistake at just after half time when Coquelin came on, and Unai tried to sort of keep the lead. He tried to keep things at 2-0, which is baffling because he had us by the scruff of the neck. Like Villarreal could have gone on, and almost nearly did go on. It was big up Bernd Leno. Like Jesus Christ, if Bernd Leno had not made that save on 65 minutes from Moreno, fuck, we would have been out of it, man. Can you imagine 3-0? Man, I don't know. I don't think even if oh bro, what was the guy's name that got sent off? Capoe. Even if Capoe still got sent off, I don't think we're getting anything out of that game. I think Villarreal is shutting up shop and at 3-0, and we're fucked. But as it happened, we've come back into the game, and to be honest with you, 2-2 or 2-1, I'm not really too bothered about either of those two. So I'm going to wrap this up with a little prediction. This is the first time I've babbled on for over like half an hour. So, like I say, everyone who's watched this, give it a like, give it a subscription to my channel. Everything's down there, of course, you all know that. I'm going to be doing way more content I'm going to do a Newcastle preview at some point before the actual game. And yeah, we're going to do them in the second leg. This is the pattern. Arsenal need contagion. Let me rephrase that. This particular set of Arsenal players need to step up to actually play to the level that we actually require them to play as Arsenal players. It should be a standard thing. As soon as you put on the shirt and you have that badge on your chest, you should be playing at an exceptional standard. But it seems that is not the case now with this crop of players, excluding the likes of Saka, Emil Smith-Rowe, those kind of players. There are exceptions to the rule, but for the majority, it's a madness, man. I don't understand how they can play the way that they play. But for some weirdly ironic reason, they step up when it's the biggest game of the season. The semi-final of the FA Cup last season, the final, Christmas, Chelsea, Arteta's job is on the line, biggest game of the season. Tottenham at home, the 2-1. The second leg against Slavia Prague, not the first leg because that's not important enough. The second leg against Slavia Prague, when everything was riding on that game, blitzed them in the first 25 minutes like it was 2001. We were playing Man City and Thierry Henry scoring 2 goals and Ray Parlour scoring a goal, and we're like 3-4-0 up in the space of 20 minutes at Main Road. The good old days.